Hello, I'm Brian Mitchell. For the past 8 years, I've worked the night shift at Greenwood Memorial Hospital's morgue. Most people can't understand why anyone would choose this job. The silence, the isolation, the company I keep. But I've always found peace among the dead. At least, I used to. There was a time when the weight of my job and the loneliness it entailed led me to rely on antidepressants, specifically sertraline, to cope with the overwhelming depression. The drug helped numb the pain but left me in a fog, disconnected from the world and myself. Thankfully, with the right support and therapy, I have managed to come out of that dark period. If you're struggling, remember that reaching out for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. 3 months ago, something changed, and now I'm making this video because I need someone, anyone, to believe what's been happening to me, before it's too late. The first incident happened on a Tuesday. Nothing special about that day. Weather was typical for October, cold, rainy. I came in at 11 p.m. as usual, relieved the evening attendant, Mike, and settled in for my shift. Paperwork, inventory, preparation for the next day's autopsies. Routine. I could hear the clock ticking, each second stretching out into an eternity. The rain against the windows created a steady rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. But it wasn't comforting. It added to the cold, oppressive atmosphere of the morgue, making the silence even more unbearable. The soft patter of rain became a relentless reminder of the isolation I felt in that dimly lit corridor. Around 2 a.m., I was updating records when I heard it. A tapping sound. 3 distinct taps, like knuckles on glass. Then silence. At first, I shook off the sound, thinking it was just the rain or the old pipes in the building. But there it was again, louder this time, coming from drawer 14. A chill ran down my spine, and my heart started to pound in my chest. The tapping was rhythmic, deliberate, and it shattered the fragile calm of the morgue. The once tranquil space was now laden with a heavy, oppressive atmosphere, filled with unspoken questions and an eerie sense of foreboding. I stood there, frozen, my hand hovering over the handle of drawer 14, feeling a mixture of dread and curiosity. What could possibly be making that sound? I stood there, frozen, as I heard 3 louder taps. Each tap seemed to echo through the cold, sterile silence of the morgue, sending chills down my spine. The rhythmic knocking felt deliberate, almost as if someone, or something, was trying to communicate. Drawer 14 held a John David, brought in earlier that day. Male, mid-40s, apparent cardiac arrest in the park. No ID, no next of kin that we knew of. And now, something, or someone, was tapping from inside his drawer. I could feel my heart pounding faster in my chest, each beat echoing like a drum in the suffocating silence of the morgue. The oppressive atmosphere grew even heavier, as if the very air around me was thickening with an unseen presence. My breath quickened, and a cold sweat began to form on my brow. The rapid beating of my heart amplified the tension, making the room feel even more isolated and sinister. It was as if the morgue itself was alive, feeding off my fear, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me, waiting for my next move. I've dealt with post-mortem muscle spasms before. Gas buildup causing movement. It happens. But this was rhythmic, deliberate. I stood in front of drawer 14 for what felt like forever, my hand hovering over the handle. Then, suddenly, I heard a loud bang. It was as if the air itself had shattered. My heart leaped into my throat, and the once heavy silence of the morgue became an oppressive weight. The atmosphere felt charged with an almost tangible tension, an invisible force pressing down on me. My breath quickened, and I could feel every nerve in my body come alive with a primal sense of fear. The room, which had seemed merely eerie moments before, now felt alive, as though it were watching and waiting. The tapping stopped. Just like that, I finally worked up the courage to open the drawer, and the body was exactly as I'd left it. No movement, no signs of disturbance, nothing to explain the tapping. I told myself it was just the building settling. Old infrastructure. My imagination working overtime after too many night shifts. I closed the drawer slowly, listening intently to the sound it made. It was a low, creaking noise, almost as if the drawer was reluctant to shut. The sound seemed to reverberate through the room, amplifying the eerie silence that enveloped me. The following night, I found all the drawer labels rearranged, not removed, just switched around, every single one. It would have taken hours, and I had locked up the night before. No one else had access except the day shift, and they swore they hadn't touched them. By week 2, I started finding personal items moved. My coffee mug on top of the specimen fridge instead of my desk. My jacket hung on a different hook. Small things, easy to dismiss. Maybe I was just getting forgetful, stressed, not sleeping well. Then the whispering started. At first, I thought it was the ventilation system, but when I turned off the fans to check, it got louder, clearer, never quite intelligible, but unmistakably human, always seeming to come from just behind me, but when I'd turn, nothing, empty room. I started recording my shifts on my phone. Listen to this. Did you hear that? I've played it for others. They say it's just static, but I know what I heard. But that was just the beginning. By the 1-month mark, I was seriously considering quitting. I'd lost 10 pounds, wasn't sleeping, jumped at every sound, but I needed this job, and honestly, I was becoming obsessed with figuring out what was happening. That's when I met Sarah Chen, new pathologist, transferred from Memorial General across town, smart, practical, and thankfully, willing to hear me out without immediately suggesting psychiatric evaluation. The dead talk to us all the time, she told me after I finally confessed what was happening, just not usually with words. She agreed to stay late one night, to witness whatever was happening herself. I could hear the clock ticking. Each tick felt like a hammer striking in the silence, pounding away at my nerves. My entire body tensed with every second that passed, the atmosphere becoming more charged and agonizing with each sound. It was as if time itself was mocking us, daring something to happen, and the oppressive weight of anticipation pressed down on my chest, making it harder and harder to breathe. We waited until 3 a.m. Nothing unusual happened. I felt like an idiot. Sarah was kind about it, but I could tell she was reconsidering that psychiatric evaluation recommendation. As she was gathering her things to leave, suddenly, we hear a sudden, loud metallic slam that echoed through the room. The sound was so jarring, it sent a shiver down my spine. Every single drawer in the west wall flew open simultaneously. 12 drawers, all at once. The force would have been impossible. And Sarah saw it too. Her face went white. For several seconds, we just stood there, frozen. Then, I could hear the sound of papers rustling violently. It felt as if an invisible force was whipping them around, creating a noise that grated on my already frayed nerves. All the paperwork on my desk, charts, forms, certificates, everything scattered into the air as if caught in a windstorm. But there was no wind. The air was completely still. Sarah grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "I believe you now," she whispered. We backed out of the room together, and as soon as we crossed the threshold, everything stopped. Papers drifted to the floor. Silence returned. I could hear heavy breathing, the sound seeming to come from all directions, reverberating through the room. It felt as though the very air was alive with anticipation, each breath heightening the tension and unease that already weighed heavily on us. My own breath mingled with the sound, creating a symphony of anxiety that filled the space. The atmosphere grew even more oppressive, as if the room itself was closing in on us, amplifying the sense of dread that made my heart race and my skin prickle. "What do we do?" I asked her. She didn't answer right away. She was staring at her hand, the one that had gripped my arm. On her wrist was a mark, 5 tiny bruises, fingerprints, too small to be mine. Like a child had grabbed her, hard. But we didn't have any children in the morgue. We hadn't had one in weeks. I could hear my heart beating rapidly, each thump echoing in my ears like a relentless drum. The sound was so intense, it felt as though my chest might burst. Sarah started researching the hospital's history. This building was old, built in the 1930s. The morgue used to be much larger, taking up the entire basement. During a renovation in the 70s, they walled off part of it to create storage space. There might be something behind those walls, she said. Records showed that section had been closed off following a series of unexplained incidents in 1972. No details about what kind of incidents, just that they were disturbing enough to warrant permanent closure. As the low, ominous tone filled the room, it felt like a shiver running down my spine. The sound was deep, almost primal, and seemed to vibrate through my very bones. It resonated in the still air, amplifying the tension that already hung thickly around us. Every shadow seemed to stretch and twist, every corner of the room draped in an unsettling veil of dread. We found the old blueprints. There was a sealed door behind the supply shelves in the back room. It took us 3 nights of careful work after our shifts to clear away enough shelving to expose it. An old wooden door, painted over many times, with a heavy padlock. The lock was rusted shut. I had to break it with a bolt cutter for maintenance. When the lock finally gave way, the door didn't immediately open. It was sealed around the edges with what looked like tar. It took both of us pushing to break the seal. The smell hit us first. Not decomposition, I know that smell all too well. This was different, older, like soil and metal and something else I couldn't identify. The room beyond was pitch black. Our flashlights revealed an enormous space, much bigger than our current morgue. Old examination tables stood in rows. Ancient equipment gathered dust. And on the far wall, something that made my blood run cold, a bank of drawers, similar to ours, but larger. 40 of them at least, all closed. We should go back, Sarah whispered, but we both knew we wouldn't. We'd come too far. We moved deeper into the room, flashlight beams dancing across abandoned tools and scattered papers yellow with age. On what must have been the main examination table was a leather-bound book, the log for this morgue. The last entry was dated October 17, 1972. It read simply, "God forgive us for what we've done. We didn't know. We couldn't have known. Seal it all away. Never open again." As I read those words aloud, our flashlights flickered. And then we heard it, tapping, coming from the drawers along the wall. Not just one drawer. All of them. A growing chorus of taps, becoming knocks, becoming bangs. Sarah grabbed my sleeve. "Run, now." We turned toward the door, but it swung shut with a thunderous slam. The flashlights died completely. And in the darkness, we heard the unmistakable sound of drawers beginning to open. What happened next, I still have trouble talking about. In the pitch darkness, something cold brushed against my face. Fingers. So many fingers, reaching, touching, grabbing. Sarah screamed beside me. I could hear her fighting, struggling against unseen hands. I could hear the sounds of struggling, the tearing of fabric. Each ripping noise seemed to slice through the oppressive silence, heightening my sense of dread. I fumbled for my phone, managed to turn on its flashlight. In that narrow beam, I caught glimpses of them. Pale figures, dozens of them, surrounding us. Not decomposed, they looked preserved, almost waxy. Men, women, and yes, children. Their eyes were open but clouded over, moving with jerky, unnatural motions. One of them had Sarah by the wrist. She was trying to pull away, but its grip was inhumanly strong. I swung at it, my fist connecting with cold, firm flesh. It didn't react to the pain, just turned its milky eyes toward me. Then it spoke. Its lips barely moved, but I heard it clearly. As I stood there trembling, I heard whispering voices fill the room. "Help us. Please, help us." The sound was like icy fingers brushing against my mind, sending shivers down my spine. Each plea was a dagger of fear, slicing through the thin veil of courage I had left. The room grew colder, the air thick with an almost tangible sense of sorrow and desperation. It was unbearable, and it made every second stretch into an eternity of horror. The others took up the refrain, a chorus of whispers filling the room. We were not dead. Not all of us. They didn't check. They didn't care. Sealed away. Forgotten. Understanding dawned on me with horrific clarity. In 1972, something had happened. A mistake. Or worse, deliberate negligence. people pronounced dead who weren't, stored away in this morgue while still alive. And when the incident started, the disturbances, they didn't investigate. They sealed it off, left them to die in the dark. What do you want from us? Sarah's voice was trembling but determined. I heard a single, clear voice pierce the air, uttering the word, witness. As the word echoed in the room, it reverberated in my very soul, sending a shiver down my spine. The figure holding Sarah released her wrist. Another approached, holding something out to me. The logbook. Pages flipped by themselves, revealing names, dates. Dozens of them, all marked as unclaimed, unnamed, forgotten. You want us to identify you, I whispered, to give you proper burials. As I listened, I could hear a collective sigh, like the wind rustling through the trees. The sound was eerie, it brushed against my senses and left me feeling unsettled. The sigh seemed to carry the weight of ages, a lament from forgotten souls that resonated deep within me. The temperature in the room suddenly dropped again. I could see my breath. The figures began to retreat, sliding back toward their open drawers. The door behind us creaked open. Sarah and I didn't need to be told twice. We ran, clutching the logbook, not stopping until we reached the safety of the lit hallway upstairs. We collapsed against the wall, gasping for breath, looking at each other with the shared knowledge that everything had changed. That was 7 weeks ago. Sarah and I have been working every night since then, researching the names in the book, cross-referencing with hospital records, trying to identify those forgotten souls. It hasn't been easy. The hospital administration doesn't want to acknowledge what happened. They've threatened our jobs, tried to confiscate the logbook. But we found allies, a journalist from the local paper, a retired nurse who worked here in the 70s and suspected something was wrong back then. So far, we've identified 23 of them, given them names, histories, families who never knew what really happened to their loved ones. With each identification, something changes in the morgue. The temperature normalizes a little, the whispering grows less frequent, but we still have 17 more to go, and they're getting impatient. Last night, I found Sarah in the morgue after hours, staring at drawer 14, the same drawer where this all began. She was pale, shaking. It grabbed me, she whispered, showing me her wrist. Fresh bruises, in the shape of fingers. It said we're running out of time. I don't know what happens if we fail, if we can't identify them all, but the incidents are escalating again. Equipment malfunction, lights flickering, and the whispering. It's becoming angry. The whispers were growing louder, more harsh by the second. I could feel them crawling under my skin, raising goosebumps. Each hiss felt like a needle prick, injecting fear into my veins. The atmosphere around me thickened, as if the very air was becoming a wall, closing in, suffocating. The relentless whispers amplified the dread, making every breath a laborious task, every heartbeat echo with urgency. So that's why I'm making this video, partly as evidence, in case something happens to me or Sarah, but also as a plea. If you recognize any of these names I'm about to read, please contact me. Help us lay these souls to rest, because I believe now that the dead do speak, and we need to listen, before they find other ways to make themselves heard. I heard it again, 3 distinct taps. Did you hear that? They're with me now, as I record this, watching, waiting. I can feel them. I heard a sudden, loud bang. It was a jump scare. My heart leapt into my throat, and adrenaline surged through my veins. I have to go now. Someone's at the door. Or, something. Remember the names. Help us finish this, before it's too late. Oh, Sarah. It's you. I was just finishing.